Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Storyteller's Corner. I'm your host, Joshua T. Calkins Truberty, also known as Byron Osidius. Today we're going to be continuing the presentation of Captured, a Metroid fanfiction, written and presented by yours truly. We begin today where we left off with Part 9. Hammer spun on his stool to see who was coming back to check on him, ready to snarl at whoever it was that no, he hadn't managed to find a way yet to get Wrench's corpse out of the suit. When he saw the vestry woman marching toward him, blaster rifle in her hands, he sprang off the seat, grabbing for his sidearm. He only had it half-levered toward her when Samus Aran shot it out of his fingers, reducing it to a clump of smoking slag on the floor behind him. He had been in dozens of firefights and had prided himself on his reputation as a weapons and combat expert over the years. However, unlike many of the grizzled veterans and would-be hard cases he had bumped into in that time, Hammer was able to accept one simple fact of life. Sometimes there is no way to win. He also had never seen in any encounter someone actually disarm someone else by shooting the weapon out of their hand. He slowly raised his hands up over his head. "Hey, I know when I'm beat," he said. Aran kept the weapon trained on him, regardless. "So, what now?" "Disarm and remove your armor," the bounty hunter commanded crisply. With careful, exaggerated motions, Hammer dropped all of his weapons and tools to the floor, finishing by popping off his armored vest and detaching the protective plates from his trousers, leaving them in a pile on the workbench directly behind him. "Philip Alstein, also known as Hammer of the Wrecking Crew, I hereby place you under bounty arrest in accordance with the laws and regulations of the First Earth Federation guidelines. Do you acknowledge that you are now in my custody?" she droned. "I do," he replied. "Good. Raise your hands over your head again," she ordered, and he did so. She stalked over to the fallen armor suit of her own, crouching down and tapping a small plate on the right ankle. It popped open, and she took out a small pair of energy bracelets, approaching Hammer with them. "Turn around." He did so, and even went so far as to put his wrists together as she shackled him and sat him back down on the stool roughly. "Remain here and cause me no grief, and you will live through this," she said, setting the rifle on the rolling bench as she crouched over the helmet and pressed her palm to it, whispering to it. The armor's chest cavity opened, and the limp form of Wrench was partly ejected, like food that a dog has vomited. There were streaks of blood running from the woman's nostrils down the exterior of the Zero suit, but Samus ignored these, instead unzipping the blue material and peeling it off of the waxy skin of the corpse. "Maker, lady, do you feel any kind of remorse?" Hammer asked as Samus carelessly tossed Wrench's body toward the wall behind her. She paused, looking at Hammer squarely. "Not frequently, no," she replied finally, taking off her own prisoner's fit suit and slipping into her Zero suit. "When on assignment, I endeavor to keep my feelings suppressed. This is easy for me," she said, zipping up the blue material and twisting the zipper, which caused the suit to suction in once more, adjusting for her more athletic and bust-heavy frame in comparison to Wrench's. "I have never had much of an emotional range. I suspect it is because of my genetic coding," she observed with a detached air. "You do realize that girl didn't do you any harm," Hammer said, pushing his feline chin toward Wrench. "She even said we shouldn't mess with you, that we should have just kept on flying and leave you to deal with your situation." "That would have been wise," Samus replied, lowering herself into the armor suit, then rising almost instantly as it came to operational status, holding her helmet in her left hand. "After all, my trap would not have been sprung if you had simply passed me by." "Trap?" Hammer shook his head, eyes fluttering. "What are you—" "I am presently engaged in a contract to capture and deliver all known members of the Wrecking Crew, as well as their command vessel, the Dozer," the bounty hunter replied. She managed to put on a small grin. "Most of you have variable values for your delivery, depending on whether or not you are alive or dead. Regardless, according to my calculations, even if I have to lethally subdue each and every one of you, your collective value, as well as that of this ship, will be more than enough profit for my purposes." Hammer just blinked at her, his tail creeping up to try and tuck itself between his legs as he sat on the wheeled stool. "Make her alive," he mumbled. "You're one scary bitch, you know that?" "So I have been told," she said, stepping toward Hammer and yanking his comms piece from his left wrist. She turned it this way and that, eyeballing it. "Add me as a registered user of this unit's PA interface." Hammer grumbled, but reached down to tap the face of the device with his nose. "Computer, reassign interface to new user," he said, and the face of the device turned white. Samus then brought it up to her own exposed nose, and the device beeped again. She set the comm piece down on the rolling bench, picked her helmet back up, and dropped it on over her head. She then aimed her cannon at the watch-like device, and Hammer watched, fascinated, as the barrel shifted and reformed, becoming a green-covered hand that grabbed it and then returned to the cannon configuration. "What did you just do?" he asked. "My augmentation and adaptation function has analyzed and incorporated the device into my suit," Samus replied through the pencil-thin audio output bar on the front of her helmet, just below the eyesight visor. "Again, I caution you to remain here and do nothing to interfere," she said. "If you do not comply, I will be forced to terminate you." "Hey, you get no funny business from me," the Catholic veteran replied, watching as Samus Aran crept out of the maintenance chamber, out into the corridor. He only hoped that the foot soldiers under the crew's command would have the good sense to do like he had, and just surrender. Less than 20 seconds later, and the sound of several weapons discharges rent the air, and he realized that having such a hope was probably fruitless. Thus concludes this portion of Captured, a Metroid fanfiction by yours truly. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure bringing back these presentations. This storyteller would be greatly appreciative if you would consider heading on over to thestorytellerscorner.substack.com and giving a read to any of the written material that I've posted up over the last couple of years over there. I've also included in the description of this video an address for my PayPal. While I am not fond, overly so, of PayPal, I am fond, as it were, of actually eating and, having the funds available to take the time to do projects like this. And I can do that a little easier if I were to have support from those who would choose to identify themselves as viewers, listeners, or fans of yours truly. So until Bitchute has a payment structure in place, I am accepting donations at my PayPal, or you can also contact and donate on my Cash App. It's #Byron of Sidious. But the information will be in the description of this video. If you so choose, I would be forever grateful and humbled by that support. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I ask that you take care of yourselves, and as always, keep reading.